Welcome back, cake friends. Today is part 2 of our Lambeth cake tutorial, and this is a sneak peek into my membership, the Finespun Cakes Academy. So if you do enjoy this tutorial, I know you're gonna love it. Head down to the description box below to join the waitlist. If you have not yet watched part 1 of this tutorial, do that first. I'm gonna link it somewhere in this video as well as in the description box below so you can watch that. And without further delay, let's get right into the tutorial. Now we're going to do the middle border. So I've got a 57R tip. So I'm gonna put the fat part of the tip touching the cake, and I'm going to do kind of a back and forth motion. So going up and down. So we're just doing an upward motion and a downward motion, back and forth, following our line. So I do have the tip, I guess, close to parallel to the cake. It's not sitting at a 45-degree angle like normal. This is so that the actual shell can stick onto the cake properly. So I am doing the shape of like a shell, like a normal shell. Just going back and forth. And don't forget to re-whip your icing every 30 minutes or so. And if you're doing another batch on a different day, definitely give it a good whip. And I sometimes like to add just a single batch of royal icing to the old batch just to freshen it up. And if you get any weird snags, you can just remove that with your scribe tool, or wait till you're finished and then you can touch the whole thing up. All right, so we've gone all the way around. Now we can do any touch-ups we need to. So if any of these are extremely out of line, we can always kind of move it just using that scribe, fix up any weird spots, and then our middle border is all done. We are on to our bottom border, so I'm switching to my PME 13 tip, and be careful, this one is very sharp. We're gonna start just by doing upside down shells, and we made all of our little markings here, so let's find the one where I marked it right here a little bit more fully. Just so I know my beginning and ending points, and then I can start going all the way around, just trying to replicate that. So we're starting at the bottom, doing a nice fat shell, so lots of pressure, and then tapering off at the top. So I'm slowly letting up the pressure as I go upwards and making it really nice and fat at the bottom. Then we just have to try and keep them as evenly spaced as possible. These ones don't look super evenly spaced, so all you have to do is remove it using your scribe tool and then try again. But usually the first few are a little bit of trial and error just to get the right feel. Make sure your tip is clean when you go to do a new one, otherwise the star shape will get a little bit muddled. So when you're nearing the end, you're gonna have to decide where you're putting the last ones. I'm gonna put this one here. And I'm gonna move this one a little bit over. All right, so those are pretty even. Now we're going to fix up the heights. So just any of them that are slightly taller, you just have to fix up the tips like this. And we're gonna clean this all up with some piping after. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but just try and get them more or less all at the same height. And then I'm also going to just very gently press down the tips because we're gonna put some piping on top of that and it might get in the way if anything is sticking up too much. I switched to my PME 5, which is just a small star tip. And we're going to do just little tiny rope borders underneath each one of these. So we're gonna be connecting them. So all you have to do is just that little tiny rope motion that we were doing before. Definitely check out my piping basics video if you are still working on that. Just try and make it as even as possible all the way across, attaching the two. And if you find you're disturbing the shells too much, just allow them to dry a little bit before you start this. So just tiny little circular motions. So we switched to the PME 2 tip, and this is just to put a scallop border, an overpiped border on top of our little rope border that we just did. So we start right at the top, and we let go so we can make a nice even swag all the way across to the other side. Just adds a little bit of extra depth to the design that we're creating. And this is very good practice for the next step, which is going to be the same thing, just you'll have to make the swags a little bit longer. I do like to lift off between each to keep those corners really nice and clean. And if you wanted to, you could do one more overpiped border using a 1.5 on top of this, but I think I'm gonna move straight into piping our swags on top of our shells. We are sticking with our PME2 tip, and now we're going to pipe our nice drop strings. So the way that we're gonna do this is piping from one, and then we're gonna skip one and go to the next. So it'll be every other shell that we're piping on. You'll understand as soon as we get started. And I'm gonna do 2 strings per shell. So we start right at the top. We're gonna lift off, keep even pressure all the way, skip this one, and then come up to the next. So that's our first string, and let's add one more. So from the same spot, just gonna make it a little bit shorter. You could start with the shorter one too, I guess, might be better. And then end off there. And then we're gonna go to our next shell. So we're going to then skip this one and then come all the way to this one here. Make sure your icing is really well whipped for this. We don't want any bubbles. It's going to make your life a nightmare. Even with well whipped icing, you can still get breakage. So just give yourself the best chance possible by whipping it properly first. So the way I'm lining these up is I'm trying to have the first string kind of come maybe halfway to 2/3 down, and then the other string should be near the bottom. So that's what you should aim for. All right, so we're on our last one, and we'll just put it all over top. Obviously, we can't really weave this one through anyway. Now for our finishing touches. We're going to use the PME2 again, and we're going to do just little dots to kind of finish up all of our loose ends. So I'm gonna put one here, right at the intersection, a nice big one, just to cover up all of that kind of ugly piping. And then we're gonna do 2 more above that. So just try and make it as parallel as possible. So we're going straight up. And also, I wanna make it large, medium, and small going upwards. So I find it easiest to look directly on to the cake at this point. If you do it from kind of the side, you're going to not be able to see very well if you're piping straight. And even still here, I don't like that one there. With these finishing touches, I always try and really take my time to make sure that everything looks really nice, because I think that this really lends some professionalism and it really cleans up the whole look. If you're not going to pay attention to this part, then the finished look can look a little bit unfinished. All right, so I finished up all of my little dots, and now I am gonna do my 1.5 tip down here just because I felt it needed a little bit more depth. So we'll just start right over here, and we're just doing the drop strings right on top of our previous 2. Just adds like a little bit more of a delicate feel if you're able to go down to a smaller tip size, which I personally prefer. I am definitely more into like the delicate piping rather than like chunky and kind of over the top piping. All right, so we went all the way around. Now let's add just some little finishing touches to make it feel extra special. So the first one that I like to add is between each of these little scallops. I like to add just a tiny dot. So hopefully you can see this. It's gonna be super small, but just a little dot between each of those scallops is one of my favorite details. And like these small things do not take a lot of time to do, but I find that they make a big difference. Okay, so we're done that. Now let's add just some little touches near the top. I'm gonna add a little dot between each of these right at the intersection. All right, and now I want to do something around here. So I might add one little dot beneath each of our little drop strings. So I think I'm going to add just like a little heart shape. So just like two little kind of lobes like that. And like if you want to add more details, go right for it. I kind of just, on the day of when I'm piping, always find little kind of things like this to add near the end that make the cake feel a little bit special, because it's going to be different on every single cake. I think I do still want to add, I'm going to do like little dots here. So I think I'm going to do 3. I'll do one larger one right in the middle below our heart. And then I'll do 2 smaller ones kind of following the line of our drop string right next to it. And I think the last detail I want to add is just 1 dot at the intersection of each of our drop strings at the base, just because we never closed off those intersections. All right, and there is our Lambeth cake. And that is a wrap on our Lambeth cake piping adventure together. We hope you enjoyed diving into the art of Old English piping, and would love to hear in the comment section below what you thought of the tutorial and your experiences piping with Lambeth. If you found this video helpful and inspiring, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single one after this. And check out our channel for more amazing cake decorating videos. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time.